Good morning, students. Welcome to commutative algebra lectures. In this lecture, we'll discuss about local properties of modules, and we also see what are extended and contracted ideals. Okay, so let's start with what is meant by saying something is a local property. Okay, so you take a ring or simultaneously a module. Okay, then we say that this A has a property, whatever property it may be, uh, p if and only if, okay, if and only if this ap localization, okay, or respectively mp has same property, same property, okay, for all same property p. See, this is p and this small is different. Okay, if you want you can write another one for all prime ideals p. Okay, this is capital P. Okay, as I said, if you have a confusion, you can say this as a property. Suppose you call it some I. Okay, if and only if A has that same property I for all prime ideals P. Okay, so then we say that this A has a has local property. Okay, be a local. This property is said to be a local property of A, or A has this local property P. So we'll try to prove some of the properties which are local for that ring or modules. Okay, what are they? We'll try to prove that this zero. Okay, and that means when a module is zero, if it is zero at locally for all prime ideals, or when a function is injective, surjective, and flatness. Okay, fine. So let's start with result. You take M, which is an A module, then the following are equivalent is saying that M is 0 if and only if MP is 0 for all prime ideals. That means localization of M at P, okay, where P is a prime ideal. And if it is equal to 0 for all maximal ideal. That means what we should understand this statement is that if you want to show that your given module M is 0, it is enough if you show that MP is 0 for all prime ideals or MM is 0 for all maximal ideals. That means you are trying to prove some property locally, then we are trying to apply globally. Okay, fine. One can observe that 1 implies 2, 2 implies 3, they are obvious because if m itself is 0, then all localization, everything that doesn't has meaning. Okay, what is important is this 3 implies 1 or 2 implies 3 is also obvious. 2 implies 3 is obvious. Why? Because we know if it is true for every maximal ideal, a prime ideal, then as every maximal ideal is prime, it is also true, right? So what we show here is the non-trivial part is 3 implies 1. That means if this m is 0 for all maximal ideals m, okay, then we want to show that m itself is 0. Okay, so we'll prove by contradiction. Say suppose assume that m is non-zero. Okay, so suppose assume that this m is non-zero, then what is meant by saying m is non-zero? Then we should get somewhere contradiction to these things, I'm sure, right? Okay, so if m is non-zero, that means there exists a non-zero element x in m, right? Now take the ideal, which is annihilator of this x, all elements which kill by x. Okay, then one can check that this I is not whole. That means 1 does not belongs to here because 1 times x is non-zero, right? So 1 is not in the annihilator of x, right? So therefore it is not a, it is a proper ideal. That means there exists a maximal ideal m such that I is contained in M. Okay, so we have a maximal ideal containing a proper ideal, right? Now one can observe that this x is in M. So this x is in M, right? So this x by 1 is in this mm. What is this? The localization of M at M, right? Okay, this implies and as we know that this mm is 0, this is 0, that is same as saying that x by 1 is equal to, you can say it's 0 by 1, right? So x times t is 0. Okay, where t belongs to s, which is a minus m, right? Where t belongs to s, which is where t belongs to S, which is A minus M. We know what is our S here, right? This is same as saying that this t times x is 0, so t belongs to annihilator of x. But annihilator of x is I, right? Our annihilator of x is, we have just called it as I. That means, but I, we know I is contained in M, so we are getting that t belongs to M. Whereas if you see here, t belongs to A minus M. So therefore, which is a, both are contradicting to each other. That means our M has to be 0. That is the only option, right? Fine. Now let's see another local property. Suppose you have phi, the map from M to N, is a module homomorphism, right? Then phi is injective if and only if phi p, localization at p, is injective for all prime ideals, injective for all maximal ideals. Okay. Again, showing 1 implies 2 is obvious. Okay, 1 implies 2. Say suppose phi is injective. That means this phi is injective. So we have a map from 0 to M, M to N. This is, we know it is exact. Okay. So, and in last class, we have proved that this S inverse carries exact sequence to exact sequence. That means when you MP, right, to NP, you can call it, this is phi p, this is exact, right? That shows that this phi p is, that means this phi p is injective. Okay. Similarly, 2 implies 3 is obvious, because if it is true for all prime ideals, then obviously it is true for maximal ideals, right? Fine. Now what we want to show? We want to show that if phi m is injective, then we want to show that our phi, if for all m phi m is injective, then we want to show that phi is injective. Okay, that means kernel of phi is 0. We want to show, call it m prime, which is kernel of phi. So our idea is to show that m prime is 0. Okay. So we use the previous result which we have shown. If we want to show that some module is 0, show that m localized at every maximal ideal is 0. That is the, right? If we, it is enough if we show that m prime is 0 for all maximal ideals, then m prime is 0, right? Okay, so that is the idea. So we have an exact sequence because it is the kernel of phi. So you can see that from 0 to m prime, which is kernel of phi, to m to n, this is exact. Okay, because this is a, you can take it, this is inclusion map. Okay, then this image is nothing but m prime, which is same as kernel of phi, right? So image is equal to kernel, therefore it is exact, right? That means because it is exact, then after taking localizations, what we know is already that this prime to to nm, okay, this is also exact because S inverse is exact, right? This is same as saying that this, what is, whatever this image, okay, yeah, this whatever image is same as kernel, but image is same as prime because it is inclusion map, right? Prime is same as kernel of this, if you call it, this is phi m, so this is kernel of phi m, right? But what we know is that this phi m is injective. That is what it is given. That means because this phi m is injective, so this is 0. So what we have proved is that prime is 0 for all maximal ideals m, right? That shows that m prime is 0 by previous result. That means kernel of phi is 0, so therefore phi is surjective. Okay, you take an exercise and show that this surjectivity also have this local property. Okay, uh, like earlier what we have taken is something like this. Now what you consider is m to n, n to 0. You argue that this is exact and so on, right? So we have to just reverse the arrows. So I'll leave it that. If you have any difficulty, you can ask. Okay. Fine. Now we'll see the flatness also have this local property. Okay, that means this flat is also a local property. So you take any a module, then m is flat a module if and only if mp is flat, if and only if mm is flat, right? So we want to show that 1 implies 2. That means whenever m is this 1 implies 2, how we can show? Suppose m is a flat module, then we want to show that mp is a flat a module, right? But if you observe that what we have proved in last class, S inverse m is isomorphic to S inverse a tensor m. Okay, right? And we proved that whenever m is flat, then extension by scalar mb we called it. So you call it this as like b. So if you call it this is like b, then this m tensor b is actually same as like mb, right? Okay, so we have already know that if m is flat, then mb is flat. Okay, where what is b a and all, where you have f maps from a to b. If we are like this, then m is a module here, then mb is a module here, right? So whenever m is flat, we prove that mb is flat. So that shows that this mp whatever we have here, this is flat, right? Okay. And 2 implies 3 again is same. What we want to show is that if m is flat, okay, then we want to show that for all maximal ideals, then we want to show that m is a flat module, right? Flat a module. So to show that something is flat, we'll take an injective homomorphism from n to p. Suppose this is injective and homomorphism. Then after tensoring with m, after tensoring with m, that means one tensor f, m tensor n to m tensor p, we want to show it is injective, right? Okay. Now because this is injective, this map is injective, then if you go whatever we have just proved here, this using local property, if that map is injective, then it is injective at all prime ideals as well as maximal ideals, right? So you can say that this fm, this is from nm to pm, this is also injective, right? So if this is injective, then because our mm is flat, so one tensor with fm, that is mm tensor with nm to this mm tensor with pm. Okay, this also we know it is injective, right? This is by given assumption. But we have already seen what is this one. This is same as m tensor n localized at m. Okay, similarly m tensor p localized at m, right? So this is, we are saying that it is injective for all maximal ideals m. So again by using the previous one, this is of course one tensor f m. So this shows that m tensor n to, so that is namely one tensor f to m tensor p, this is also injective by local property. That shows that our m is flat module, right? So these are some of the interesting results of flatness. And if you see the order, when we, after proving m is equal to 0, to prove injectiveness we have used this first result. Okay, then to prove the flatness we have used this injectiveness, right? So it is interesting. Okay, now we introduce some new concept of ideals. They are called extended and contracted ideals in a ring. So take f maps from A to B. Okay. Then if suppose this B, you write just script here. B is an ideal. So let me write this. Okay. So if B is an ideal here, if this is an ideal, then if you take its inverse image f inverse of this b, then it is always an ideal. You can easily check that, we have seen already. Okay, that we will call it as, so it is an ideal in A, and we will call it that as contraction. So this is called contraction of b and denoted by bc. Okay, so bc is f inverse of b. Okay, so given any ideal here and a homomorphism, you always have an ideal here called contracted ideal. Okay, contraction of that b. Now, whereas if you have f from A to B, if you have an ideal A here, okay, then it is not necessary that this f of A is need not be an ideal always. Sometimes it may be an ideal, sometimes may not be an ideal. You can easily check that from Z to Q, whatever ideal is here, it is not an ideal here, right? But so how we can get some, if you have an ideal here, so how we can get an ideal here, that is called extended ideal. The idea is, even though this is not an ideal, if you take the ideal generated by this set, then obviously it is an ideal, right? So that is called extended ideal. So what is meant by extended ideal is that you take A, then you take f of A, okay, then the ideal generated by this, which is same as this times b, right? F of A times b. Okay, so that is called b times f of a, or f of a times b generated by f of a in b is called the extension, right? Extension of this a, extension of a, that you can denote by ae. So ae is f of a times b. How any general element look like here is f of xi times yi, where xi's are in that ideal a and yi's are in the ring b. Okay, fine. Now we can see some simple properties of this, how what are meant by this contraction and extension. Okay, so take a ring homomorphism from a to b, and a and b are, that means a is, so you have f maps from a to b, and a is an ideal here and b is an ideal here. Okay, then you can easily observe that if you have a, then you extend it, which is an ideal in b, and you try to contract it. So the moment you extend, then it is always bigger than the original if you even contract it. That means first you extend it, then even you try to contract it, it is always bigger than the original. Okay, and similarly, what is the other possibility? You take b, then you try to contract it, it is an ideal in a, and extend it. So you are first contracting, then extending. Okay, it is always contained in b. That means you take the ideal, if you try to contract it and then extend, it is still smaller than the original one. Okay, you can, that is the first one observation, one can easily prove, it is not difficult one. Then the second one is, it is this, you take b, which is ideal in b here, then you contract it. Okay, that is an ideal in a. Okay, whereas you take bc. Okay, then that means you contract, then extend, it is here, then again you contract. What you get here is it is same. Okay, let me repeat again. You take b and you take its contraction, so it is an ideal here. Okay, which is equal to, so you extend, then again contract, you get same thing. Okay, similarly, and what is this, you take a, this is this a. Okay, and you extend it, it is an ideal here. This is same as, for this ideal you contract and extend again. So ae is aec, and bc is bcec. Okay, and the third one is the another interesting result is, if you call it c as contracted set of contracted ideals in A, and E is the set of extended ideals in B, then the contracted ideals are nothing but A. If A, you extend it and you contract it, it should be same as this. Similarly, what should be our E is, this is an ideal of B such that when you contract it, then you extend it, you should get B. And there is a one-to-one bijective map from C to E. Okay, if you call it this phi, then how element it is going, phi of any A is its extension. Okay, you try to extend it, right? Fine. The first one is not at all difficult. If you take x belongs to A, then x, you can check that f of x belongs to f inverse of A, because f of x, which is same as x by 1, belongs to E. This is extended ideal, right? If x belongs to A, then f of x belongs to this a extended. That means, because what is this one? It is f of a times b, right? So obviously f of x belongs to f of a, so it is belongs to a, right? So therefore x belongs to AEC. Similarly, you take y belongs to BC, then y is, you can write as linear combination of these things. Okay, so that means fix belongs to B, and that means y belongs to. So these are very, first one is very basic, and second one is follows from one, because what we have here is, if you take BC, then we know that this is contained in BCEC. Okay, that means I am applying first result for this BC, right? And you can check that B contains this BC. Okay, then you take BC and you will get BCE is equal to BCEC, right? Fine. The what is little interesting is this third one. Suppose you take A belongs to C. That means, that is A is a contracted ideal. Okay, A is contracted ideal. Then we want to show that A EC is same as A. Okay, so because A is a contracted ideal, so you can write A is equal to BC for some B an ideal here, right? This implies AEC if you take extend, then you contract, this is same as BCEC. But BCEC is same as BC, and again BC is same as A. So we prove that AEC is equal to A, right? Therefore, if it is an element of C, then it satisfies this condition. And whenever it satisfies this condition, then obviously it is a contraction ideal, right? Okay, so if at all it is satisfying this condition, then you can check that it is actually a contraction of this ideal, right? Similarly, for E, you can prove it. What is this? If you define this C to A by phi of A as AE, then first of all, we have to make sure that this is actually belongs to E. Okay. Why? When we say that something is an element of E, if you contract it, then again extend, you should get original one. So for if we want to say that this is in E, for this one you contract it, then you extend again, you should get the original one. But AECE is same as AE, right? So therefore it is well defined, right? Now why this is surjective? To show something is surjective, let B belongs to E. If B belongs to E, that means B CE is same as what we know, BCE is same as B, right? Because when you contract it and you extend it, you should get original one. Okay. But if you observe that, what is this one? This is same as this. If you call it, this is like A, right? If you call it A is equal to BC, then it belongs to C. So phi of A, which is same as phi of BC, right? Which is same as BCE, which is equal to B. So we shown that phi of A is equal to B. So it shows that it is surjective. Now, injective is not difficult. Phi of A1 is equal to phi of A2, but how phi is defined? A1E is same as A2E. So you take contractions. So A1EC is equal to A2EC. Now the fact that A1 and A2 are in C, that means A1 contracted. That means you extend, then you contract is same as A1. Right. So therefore this is same as A1 and this is same as A2. It shows that there is a bijection. Okay. Now you can go through this results and you can easily prove it. What you can prove is you take two ideals and take their sum, okay, and you try to extend it. Is same as individually you extend it and you take their sum. Similarly, for uh, that contraction is not one, it contraction of this, if you take the sum and try to contract it, it always contains some of the contractions, okay, and intersection, and it is you all for product this extension is equal, okay, and you see the quotients, extension, contraction, so all easy and one can try this, show that it is here and it is here and so on using the basic properties, okay. Even for radical also you can prove that radical of B you take, then you contract it is same as you contract, then you take the radical, it is same. So for where it is equal and where it contains and all, you can check by proving, okay. Yes. So next class we'll see the extended and contracted ideals in S inverse A. So how these extended and contracted ideals look like in S inverse A and what are those properties, those things we'll see next class.